The narcissist's internal world transforms into psychological chaos when confronted with sustained silence from someone they once controlled. This absence of response triggers an emotional cascade that exposes the full depth of their dependency, fragility, and desperate need for external validation. The silence creates a void where their victim's attention once resided, forcing the narcissist to face feelings they've spent their entire life avoiding through manipulation and control. Their emotional journey through this silence reveals the profound emptiness beneath their grandiose exterior and the terrifying reality that without their victim's engagement, they dissolve into insignificance. The initial panic of lost control. The narcissist's first emotional response to sustained silence is visceral panic that contradicts their carefully maintained image of self-sufficiency. They experience the silence as a form of psychological death, the sudden absence of the reflection that allowed them to feel real and important. This panic stems from their recognition that they've lost all ability to influence their victim's emotional state, rendering their entire arsenal of manipulation tactics useless against someone who simply refuses to engage. This anxiety intensifies as hours turn to days without the response they've conditioned themselves to expect. They compulsively check for messages, create scenarios to force contact, and obsess over their victim's activities in ways that would seem desperate if anyone witnessed their private behavior. The silence confronts them with a reality they cannot tolerate, that they need their victim far more than their victim needs them, and that all their perceived power was illusory, dependent entirely on their victim's willingness to participate in the dynamic. The rage born from wounded ego. As panic subsides without producing the desired reconnection, the narcissist's fear transforms into volcanic rage at the person who dared to treat them as irrelevant. This fury stems from the ultimate narcissistic injury, being ignored, dismissed, and rendered powerless through simple disengagement. They experience the silence as deliberate cruelty, an unforgivable attack on their worth, never recognizing it as the natural consequence of their own destructive behavior. This rage consumes them with fantasies of revenge, imagined confrontations where they reassert dominance, and elaborate scenarios where their victim comes crawling back with apologies. Yet beneath this anger lies something more devastating: the growing awareness that their rage itself is impotent, that it reaches no audience, creates no impact, and changes nothing about their victim's continued silence. They discover that fury without a target to receive it becomes a poison they must swallow themselves. The gradual descent into existential emptiness. As silence extends beyond their ability to maintain rage or panic, the narcissist begins experiencing something they've avoided their entire life: confrontation with their own internal void. Without their victim's reactions to define them, their emotions to manage, or their attention to consume, the narcissist faces the terrifying emptiness at their core. They discover that without external validation and engagement, they have no stable sense of self to fall back on, no internal resources to sustain them, and no genuine identity beyond the performances they've perfected. This emptiness feels like disintegration, a gradual dissolution of the false self they've constructed without anything authentic to replace it. They may cycle through desperate attempts to fill this void with new supply, substances, or other destructive behaviors, but nothing adequately replaces the specific validation their silent victim once provided. The narcissist realizes they've become psychologically dependent on someone who no longer considers them worth even a moment's attention. The unbearable recognition of irrelevance. The final and most devastating emotion the narcissist experiences is the gradual acceptance that they've become completely irrelevant to someone who once organized their entire life around earning the narcissist's approval. This recognition strikes at the foundation of their grandiose self-image, confirming their deepest fear, that they are neither unforgettable nor psychologically indispensable to anyone. They feel the full weight of their own replaceability, their own ordinariness, and their own fundamental insignificance in their victim's life. The silence teaches the narcissist what they've always refused to learn: that their perceived power was always borrowed from their victim's engagement, that their sense of importance depended entirely on others' willingness to care about their reactions, and that stripped of external validation, they are nothing but an empty performance with no audience left to watch. This realization creates a psychological wound that never fully heals, a permanent reminder that someone saw through them completely and chose peace over their chaos.